Hi, I'm Dana Williams, founder of Redeemed Identity Ministries and the host of the Redeemed Identity After Divorce podcast, now a top 10 divorce podcast that also ranks number 2 in Australia. This is the show that helps you remember who you are in Christ after divorce. When life feels shaken, your identity feels blurry, and you're wondering what's next. And now you can also watch the podcast and connect with our growing global community at YouTube at Redeemed Identity After Divorce. If you'd like more encouragement, behind the scenes updates, and sneak peeks of upcoming episodes, be sure to sign up for the free newsletter at www.redeemed-identity.com. And don't forget, that hyphen is important. So grab a cup of coffee, take a deep breath, get comfy, and join me inside. I am here with Misty Hughes. She is a certified ICF life and leadership coach, Gallup Strengths champion, Symbis facilitator, and founder of Rhythm of Life Coaching. Known as a dream champion and gratitude guide, with her 20 years of experience in leadership development, coaching, and mentoring, she is the host of Mom to Mom Mentoring podcast and a seasoned speaker and workshop leader. Misty and her husband Craig love to travel. They love to bike through the vineyards, snorkeling in Puerto Rico. I'm so jealous. And sipping espresso in Tuscany. I'm still jealous. Grammy to 6 and mentor to many. Misty equips women to overcome the overwhelm, align their lives with what truly matters, and step boldly into their God-given identity so that they can truly shine from the inside out. Because she firmly believes that when you shine, you give others permission to shine too. Love that. She understands the need for young women in the faith to have someone in their lives that they can emulate, look to, and welcome and encourage them. So, Misty, welcome to the show. I'm so excited we finally got to put this all together, the puzzle pieces together.
Yeah, thank you, Dana. Thanks for bearing with me in my
It's okay. We're all in the same boat with the
time
storm.
zone challenge, right?
Totally. I've had a horrible cough, so I have a cough drop in my mouth. I apologize to my listeners and
Okay.
our watchers and you, because it might look weird, but it's better than me coughing in your face. So, or in my microphone. So, Misty, tell me about your divorce story and how Mom to Mom Mentoring was born. That is a great story.
Yeah. So, I'll go back to when I got married. So, Dana, I was a really young mom. I was 21 when I got married, and I was pregnant at the time. And so our marriage did not start out on the best foot forward, right? But we were committed, we were young, we were going to figure it out. Fast forward 13 years, 4 kids, and he decides he's not in it for the long haul. And so this was in the 90s, and I had, my youngest was 2 at the time.
Wow.
And so probably the 18 months before he officially informed me that he was moving out, it was the worst of the worst time for our marriage, for me, for being confused, like, what's wrong with me? Why isn't this working? And Dana, I was homeschooling at the time, loving that part of life. I really loved being a mom and walking my kids through the learning process and growth, and we just had fun. So loved that part of my life. And so when my husband, he chose to get involved with someone else, and when he told me he was leaving, it was not because I'm involved with someone else. I did not know at the time he told me he was leaving that he was involved with someone else. He informed me that he had taken a job in another city that was 4 hours away, and he shared that at that time, he said, I think this is the only way our marriage can make it if I leave. And so we were involved in church. We were, faithful. I thought we both had a deeply personal relationship with Jesus. And what he was saying didn't align with what I believed to be true. So, anyway, so he did move out, and it was an interesting time. It was a difficult time. He'd come back on weekends, and those were just horrendous times because it was just a very confusing time for me. And I had friends that would be like, oh, he's having an affair. He's having an affair, right? And the torment of that thought, like it was just, I couldn't deal with it. So I went before the Lord and I said, okay, Jesus, here's the deal. I can't deal with wondering if he's having an affair or not. I can't parent when I'm thinking about that all the time. It's consuming. And so I'm going to choose to believe the best until you show me otherwise. And that protected my heart. It protected my mind. It protected my sanity. That lingering thought was always back there in the back, wanting to come and go. But so I feel very fortunate because he left at the end of July, and in November, like, everything came out. And so I feel like it was a small, short amount of time. And then, during the next months, I felt like, okay, I need to decide. And I was in counseling, fortunately, and I had audience with my pastor at the time, and just a few other trusted women in my life that I could try to process with, but nobody can tell you what to do, right? Nobody can say, people try. I will say, well, if I were you, I'd do this, or this is what worked for me, or this is how I did it. But one thing I've learned through my journey is we all have a path, and each path is individual. And so I had to learn to lean into the Lord's leadership for my path. And I could, there's just no cookie cutter answer for anything in life. How to grieve, how to deal with loss, anything. So he's the one that filed for divorce because I decided that I believed God with all things. God with all things.
God is possible.
What am I trying to say? Yeah.
That's what you're trying to say.
With God, all things are possible. That's it.
Yes.
Wow. And so I believe that, and I still believe it. And everybody gets to make their choice, what they believe. And so I chose to stand there, and he filed for a divorce. And Dana, the tragedy of it was that he also filed for custody of our 4 kids. And that killed me more than the reality that, like, he wanted to leave. Honestly, I mean, I was probably a difficult wife. And, I had expectations, and I had things, and wanted our lives to be a certain way, and wanted him to be a certain way. We're young, we're immature in the Lord, and all of that. And so I could understand, okay, maybe there's someone better than me out there that you can find that's, I'll deal with that, but you can't tell me I'm a bad mom.
Exactly.
And basically, when you file for custody of kids, and that was his plan, was, to say that I was a bad mom, I wasn't, capable, and all of this. And so that was the tragedy to my heart. And that was a place that I will say I had to fight to believe the truth, because it is a very evil attack against your very identity.
Yes,
right? And so I just remember laying fetal position in my hall and just screaming and crying, and, just crying out to God. And so I picked myself back up off the floor, as I did many times over the next 3 years, right?
Yes.
And, just got on the phone, had to find an attorney because he filed in the city he had moved to. And I discovered how calculated it was in the aftermath, because it was like right at the 6-month mark that he filed. And so anyway, I will say, as horrendous as the process was, God was so faithful in the divorce process because I had to get an attorney in his city. And fortunately, this was back in the day when attorneys would talk to you for like an hour on the phone
Without charging you an arm and a leg just
without
for that.
charging you.
Now it's every
I
15
learned,
minutes, every text.
yeah.
Yeah.
I learned so much. And I would call attorneys, and I mean, I did. I think I called probably half a dozen. And I said,
Goodness.
okay, here's the deal. Here's what's going on. How would you represent me? That's what I learned to say. And so they would tell me their strategy. And so then I'd call the next one and the next one and the next one. And I found out all these different strategies that they would walk through. And so then I had these attorneys, and I was like, Jesus, who do I go with? And I feel like the Lord spoke to my soul, and said, it doesn't matter.
Mm.
I'm going to be the judge. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going with the cheapest one then. And so I did. He was green, he was new, and he was the cheapest one. But I had all these strategies. And so I knew I was paying him and he had to represent me. And so I knew enough. Like, I don't know. I had a good friend that had gone through a divorce about a year before, and she was like my divorce coach. And now I know people that actually coach through divorces. And I've got to tell you, I think it's so wise because you don't know. And you're so many of your choices are emotional choices, right? And so my attorney told me, well, I said, here's the strategy I want to use. I said, my kids are not going to be pawns in this divorce. And so I want a change of venue. And simply what that means is I wanted to file, instead of the first thing, I wanted to file for a change of venue because we lived in another county, and I wanted the divorce proceedings to come back to our county because I didn't want to have to cart my kids back and forth to another city and another county to appear in court. I mean, that would be traumatic.
Yes.
And I was pissed. And so anyway, so my attorney, hard. He said, well, that'll never work. And I said, I don't care. I'm paying you. That's what I want. So he filed, a couple months later, I get a call from him, and he's, and I knew that it was coming up, and he called and he said, you're not going to believe this. He said, the judge granted you a change of venue. And I'm like, I believe it because God is faithful. And so anyways, the kids were removed as a pawn in the divorce as a result. And I decided, we remove the kids, we'll keep the venue there. You can keep your attorney, I'll keep my attorney. It'll just be between you and me. So fortunately, that was that. And so our divorce was pretty simple. We were poor. We didn't have a lot to divide. We didn't have a lot to deal with. And this is crazy too, Dana. Never once did I have to appear in court.
That is that's a miracle. That is a miracle.
Isn't that crazy?
I think that's a miracle. That's a biblical miracle right there.
I know. And at the time I didn't realize what an anomaly that was, but I have started a nonprofit for single mothers. I've worked with hundreds, if not thousands, of single moms across the country. And I agree with you. It is a miracle.
He had your
nothing
back.
less.
He went before you,
my
and he had
word.
your back the whole time.
Crazy. Very life changing.
Very, in so many ways. It's spiritually changing. It's, sometimes there's physical changes because of whatever you went through. But
Yeah.
emotionally, I mean, it really is a time where we wrestle with God with, how much am I going to trust you through this? Am I going to trust you with all of me? Or am I going to keep some of it back because I don't trust you? And many women who have been through divorce, well, even many men, their trust factor with their heavenly Father has a lot to do with their earthly father or their earthly experiences. And so I know for me, I had to trust at a greater level. when I was going through mine.
Mhm.
You have to learn how to trust at a greater level. And like you, the Lord went before me and he was my rear guard the whole time. And it was
Yeah.
we see miracles sometimes if we're looking for
Mhm.
them.
Yeah. And I think too, that whole trust thing, and I'm married now, I was single for 22 years, and I'm married now, and I've shared this with my husband because, trust is it's a big thing. And
It's
and
huge.
so I said, I didn't wake up one day and have this supernatural trust in the Lord. I
Yeah.
knew I didn't trust him, and I remember praying and telling the Lord that was just kind of like my relationship with him. I'd be like, "Hey, I know I don't trust you, and I
Mhm.
know you want me to trust you. You're gonna have to prove to me that you're trustworthy." And I think that's it. Like, that sounds like, oh, I'm telling God what to do, but I think it was
You're being
more me
honest. You're being
inviting.
honest with the Lord.
Yeah. And it was really about me inviting him into
Mm,
that vacancy. I had a trust vacancy in my soul.
that's
I
good.
didn't know
Yes.
how to trust. I had a hole there. And it was really about me saying, I'm confessing. I'm
Mhm.
telling you, you're right, Jesus. I don't trust you. I don't know how to trust you. I don't know what trust looks like. I can't wake up tomorrow and have this trust in you. So I'm giving you permission to begin to show me that you're trustworthy.
Good. Very good.
And that's what he's done. And so fast forward, like I said, I got married and my husband's like, I want you to trust me. And I'm like, hey,
Good luck
I
with
didn't
that.
trust Jesus, who is perfect. So don't expect me to trust you tomorrow. You're going to have to prove to me that you're trustworthy.
Right.
I don't have a good history with men, right?
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
And so fortunately I married someone who is faithful and dependable and very trustworthy and is in it for the long haul. And so when we hit that spot of there's a trust factor there, he's very much represents the heart of Jesus to me.
Oh, what a
So
blessing. What a
yeah,
blessing.
yeah.
Thank you for joining Misty and I today for Redeemed Identity After Divorce podcast. Misty will join us next week for part 2 of our discussion on why rest is so important after divorce. If this show blessed you in any way, please let us know. And please sign up for the free newsletter at www.redeemed-identity.com. Don't forget that hyphen is important. Remember, divorce is not the end of your story, it's the beginning of a redeemed one. I'll see you next week with Misty Hughes to finish our discussion.